Hello and welcome to Health Matters. I'm Sherri Gallant with Alberta Health Services, and we are pleased to bring you an array of health-related topics and guests today. To start off, we're going to talk a little bit about post-secondary education. And we can say, I think, that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the learning environment for university and college students was really like nothing we've ever seen before. Now that restrictions are over and students are back on campus, and maybe some are on campus for the first time in their educational career, many have been finding that situation challenging. To tell us why that is, we are pleased to have Dawn McBride with us today. Dawn is a counselor education professor at the University of Lethbridge, and she's also a registered psychologist. Thanks for being with us, Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you.
There seems to be a notion that students are adjusting to the, in air quotes, new normal coming out of the COVID pandemic, yet a lot has changed. Is it okay to not feel okay?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The pandemic was characterized by uncertainty, upheaval, and it's very understandable. It makes sense why people are struggling and might be doing okay one day and not okay the other day. Researchers are telling us that coming out of the pandemic, our rates of depression, anxiety, addiction use, violence, and even thoughts of suicide have all increased. So not feeling okay can make sense. Absolutely.
Dawn, I'm wondering if you're familiar with the term and if you can talk about something called survival brain.
Right. Yes. Survival brain is part of not feeling okay. Survival brain is essentially to preserve our life, right? To keep us alive. But when we're under emotional stress, that survival brain tricks us into thinking that everything's a threat or something will be a threat. And so we stay on guard, and this can be exhausting. When we're in survival brain, we're going to have a lot of irritability. We're going to be perhaps really super controlled, want things done a certain way, expect perfectionism from ourselves, from others. We can also have struggles with impulse control. Sometimes our values can get distorted or lost. This is an exhausting state to be in. So when we get in survival brain being hyper-focused, eventually we're also going to go into collapse energy, where we're tired. We feel that we can't motivate ourselves. We have high fatigue levels. And some people call this the freeze response, where we just don't get things done and our values even change as well. So survival brain is working between this hyper focused, very controlling, very lots of energy to collapse. And we go back and forth and we miss out on being in our groove zone, or what some people call the learning or thriving brain.
What are some indicators that students might be operating in survival brain?
Yes, yes. As a professor, operating in survival brain will often look like or sound like students talking about having memory problems. They can't seem to recall the information. They say it's in my brain, but I can't retrieve it. Or students will say, I just can't seem to even get the material in my brain. We'll hear students talk about fatigue, exhaustion. I'll see students not looking after their grooming, that they're not dressing well, they are not eating well, they're gaining weight, losing weight as they're trying to cope. We'll also hear them lose motivation, that their values around wanting to master, understand the material is just, what can I do to get by? We'll also see some students get stuck in fight energy. They'll complain a lot. They will hyper focus on half a point on their paper and it will be the end of the world, all the way to them saying, I just don't care anymore. I'm not going to submit my assignments. What's the point? And that ties into a lot of procrastination issues. We'll also start hearing that they're not leaning into connection anymore. They're not showing up for office hours. They're isolating themselves, or they go to the extreme and really doing too much socialization because that's giving them a sense of relief and they're not staying focused on the work that they have to get done, all the way to where their anxiety, their mood issues are stopping them from being able to feel like they can function. And then, of course, we're going to get students that are in that survival brain exhausted, thinking maybe thoughts of suicide is a way to be able to help them out. And or they are getting into relationships that aren't very good for them and don't know what to do. And so we're not seeing them asking for help, because when you're in survival brain, sometimes you don't think anybody can help you. And that's a really dangerous sign.
It sounds like living in fear. So if that is the case, what would be the opposite of that?
Yes, living in fear describes a survival brain very well. When we're not in survival brain, or when we want to shift out of survival brain, some people will call that the learning brain, the thriving brain. With clients, I'll typically say getting into your groove zone. And what this means is that you're able not to allow your emotions to dictate your thoughts or your actions. And we call that emotional regulation. You're also pretty good at problem solving. You're like, okay, there's a problem. What are my options? How have I handled something like this in the past? What works? What doesn't work? Who can help me out with this? So you're leaning also into connection. You're looking for people to give you guidance. You're not in this hyper independence or hyper dependence, but you're just saying, let me gather the facts. So you're making decisions that align well with your value system. You also have a sense that what you're going through when you're in learning brain, thriving brain, grooving brain, is that this problem is only temporary. I'm not always going to feel like this. So can I just take a rest, get my energy up to how to deal with this problem? But when you're in survival brain, you're kind of thinking it will always be this way. There will be no change. Other people describe themselves being in the groove side or in learning brain or in thriving brain, is that there's excitement. There's moments of gratitude. There's a sense of what I'm doing is going to lead to something greater. So this struggle is going to help me handle future struggles. So there's a sense of purpose in what's happening in their life that they can give meaning to.
So I see what you mean about how in survival brain, you could be sort of in a stuck state. But if there's a sense of awareness that if the student has a sense of awareness that this is where they might be, what could be maybe the first step they could take if they really kind of want to break out of it? What should they do?
So how to break out of survival brain. This is a really important concept that we need to be teaching kids, and keep using this all the way up the age range is so important. There's many strategies, and one of the most common principles in psychology and in my field is that your thinking will influence how you feel and influence what you do. So a lot of time to shift out of survival brain is trying to get a different perspective as to what you're going through. So one perspective example could be, is this won't always be this way. Another perspective is being able to examine, what do I have control over and what don't I have control over? In survival brain, we'll typically be focusing on a lot we don't have control over. If I could just change somebody, if I could just change society, if I could only change somebody's behavior. And that puts us into a hyper-focused, into a control state that will eventually lead to exhaustion. So survival brain is, what do I have control over right now? And what we have control over is what I talk about is our ABCDs. We have control over our A, our affect, our emotions. So what can you do with those emotions? B, body sensations. What can you do to make your body feel a little bit better? Do you need to move? Do you need to rest? Do you need to put some heat on yourself? Cognitions stands for C, right? And C stands for, what messages are you telling yourself? A very common intervention we use in psychology is, how would you be talking to your friend right now if your friend was going through what you're going through? Or what would your religious mentor say to you right now? So how can we be more compassionate and caring to ourselves to reduce our critical parent thoughts that might be in our head? And then D for some people is doing. What can you do to have a little bit more control over your emotions, over your body sensations, over your thoughts? And so we want to encourage people to really keep checking in with themselves, because when you start checking in with yourself, you're automatically starting to shift yourself into a thriving, grooving state to function in. Another way to get yourself out of survival brain and or pop out of survival brain, because we're going to go in and out of survival brain, learning brain, is something that psychologists often will do with clients, and that is look at your wellness profile. And your wellness profile means that we have a number of components that helps us stay well, that helps us cope with difficult times or builds our resiliency.
I see. So I guess we sort of have to try to treat ourselves as we would treat or approach ourselves as we would someone we love, someone we care about.
Absolutely. I liked how you phrased treat ourselves how I liked what you said, that in terms of treat ourselves in the same way that we would treat somebody that we really love. That was well said.
It sounds like if you can make that shift in your head, that then, like you said, already you're starting to make those changes. And then you talked about wellness. So, and I'm familiar with the fact that there are many areas of wellness. So is there a way that, could you share with us some ways that students could assess how they're doing in their own wellness?
Yes, great question of how students can assess their own wellness, and then to create an action plan, because that's something they have control over, which can then boost them into their groove zone. So can I just put up a PowerPoint to help that? It's just a quick slide.
Sure.
That'd be okay. Right, hang on. So wellness can be conceptualized through different profiles. And what a psychologist might do is ask a client, okay, you're going through a lot right now as we're adjusting to this upheaval, uncertainty, showing up on campus, maybe not wearing a mask, so you're feeling more vulnerable and so forth. And let's focus on what you do have control over and what you don't have control over and how well you are functioning. So for example, we might have a client draw this histogram, this chart, and ask them to rate how much are they looking after themselves in these categories. So if we look at the first category there that is on emotional wellness, I might ask a client, how much time are you putting in towards looking after your emotions? All right, being able to emotionally regulate, being able to name your grief, being able to sit with anxiety and so forth. Are you doing that a little bit? Are you in your groove? You're actually doing a pretty good job. Or are you focusing too much on your emotions? Because we want to be in that groove zone. And then I might ask a client, so what about your body wellness? How are you treating your body? What are you putting into your body? How are you moving your body? Are you giving enough time for your body? Some people might put way too much time on their body, all right? And other people don't care about their body at all. But where are you at in your groove zone? Another category is financial wellness. So how are you looking after saving, spending? Are you being too thrifty? Are you being too impulsive? Are you having enough money for food and shelter, and who's helping you with all that, right? And in this profile that you can see on the screen there's a lot of issues around about financial wellness. And so as a psychologist, we'll be trying to figure out how to expand that. Environmental wellness is a very interesting one that we got quite good at during COVID. Environmental wellness speaks to your physical surroundings. Are you creating a physical surrounding that gives you calm energy, that's soothing for your system in your own space? Are you getting out in the community and being able to get nature and sun on your skin? And are you also being involved in your community to use your environment to the best that you can? And for a lot of us coming out of the pandemic, we have to get used to being in that environment again and not just in a very closed environment. And then we have academic wellness. Do you have a schedule? Are you sticking to a routine? Do you know how many hours you have to spend per topic? Have you written out when all your deadlines are and your plan to meet those deadlines? And in this profile, this person is doing a fantastic job. In fact, they might even be too focused on their academic wellness, which means they're sacrificing other areas of wellness. The remaining areas of social wellness. How much time are you spending connected to people? Because we're wired to be in connection with people. And signs of mental wellness is often when we're withdrawing, we're hyper independent, or we just are isolating. We need people to soothe our brain, and the right people that are engaging and supportive of you. This is why it's important to connect with your professor, show up to your professor, because we can help you feel connected to the material just by two nervous systems talking about the material can be so helpful. But also talk to other people that you trust or connect to a counselor to learn how to lean back into connection. And the last area of spiritual wellness is an area that sometimes gets missed. And spiritual wellness is, how are you making sense of why you're being a student, of why you are suffering, why you have anxiety? What is the greater purpose? And spiritual wellness also talks about something greater than yourself. How do you make sense of why bad things are happening in the world? And how can you look at somebody to give you guidance, a protective image, a nurturing image, a wise image? And how much time are you spending in your wellness of catering to your spiritual wellness? And so the goal in coping with stress times is being able to fall into this zone somewhere of your groove, that all these components of wellness fit somewhere in that groove. And over time, we're going to have ups and downs, but ultimately we want to get into our groove so we can stay in the thriving brain or grooving brain for as long as we can during times of stress.
That is a very powerful visual tool. I've never seen anything like that. And to see all of these areas of wellness and sort of be able to, focus on maybe finding middle ground for all of them could be very balancing and very eye-opening. I also love the way you touch on spiritual wellness. I think maybe some people might misinterpret that as a religion or something like that, but spiritual wellness doesn't necessarily have to mean that. And I love the way you clarified that. It could even be the power of nature. It's different, I guess, for every person.
Absolutely. That what you're sharing right now is representative of a thriving brain, learning brain, grooving, whatever language works, because of the flexibility. When people become rigid, that's a safety response, which means you're in survival brain. There's only one way to do something, and that's my way. We don't function as a society with rigid thoughts. And so just that flexibility that spirituality could represent so much is a clear indicator of being in a thriving brain, a brain that's flexible and open to different perspectives.
Wow, Dawn, thank you so much for this. I think this was very powerful, very, very helpful and informative. And I hope that maybe we can have you back sometime.
Absolutely. I think that's been great. You guys make it so easy, so great.
Thank you. And thank you for being with us. Stay around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I am pleased to introduce Janelle Manabat. Janelle is a dietetic intern from Medicine Hat Community Health Center, and she's come to talk with us about a topic that's very challenging for a lot of people, myself included, and that is mindful eating during the holidays. Thank you so much, Janelle, for joining us.
Thank you.
What does mindful eating mean? Because maybe it's not self-explanatory. And how can it benefit us if we learn how to do it during the holiday season?
So mindful eating basically means being aware of your eating habits. So this is what, how, when, where, why, and how much we eat. And you can do this by paying attention to your hunger and fullness cues before and after a meal. Also by paying attention to the tastes and the textures of the foods you eat to determine what you truly like eating. Also being aware of your eating environment, which is where you eat, who you eat with, what time, is also part of mindful eating. So how can that benefit us during the holiday season? Well, food is such a big part of the holiday season, right? And mindful eating can help us really enjoy these eventful mealtime experiences while also keeping us healthy during holidays.
Do you have any tips on how to manage hunger and fullness during this time?
Managing hunger and fullness can definitely help you be more mindful during the holidays. So a couple tips I have is to first be aware of those hunger cues. So know that there's a lot of different factors that go into you maybe overindulging a little bit on foods other than your body's natural signals. So For example, if you're too stressed or you're bored, you might be more likely to overindulge. So just take time to listen to your body and really keep track of the reasons why or why not you're eating at this moment. Secondly, do not skip meals before the event. Make sure you eat 3 meals a day or eat as much as you usually would at the regular times. The reason why is because if you show up to the event super hungry, you're more likely to overindulge in foods. And third, slow down. So try to eat slowly and thoughtfully, take time to digest before you choose to eat seconds. And really just relax and eat with others and enjoy the conversations with friends and family. Because, like I said, this is an important, eventful mealtime experience that should be appreciated. And my final tip is to notice what's available. So recognize that there's going to be a lot of food options that will be given to you or offered to you at the dinner table, and know that it's not limited to the holiday season. So really just choose the foods that you like eating and you look forward to eating during the holidays, and reassure yourself that there's going to be a lot of food to go around. What this will help you do is be more relaxed about your food choices, and really just know that you don't have to eat every single item or choose every single item at the dinner table offered to you. And also just be aware that you might just be eating because there's food available to you and not because you're actually hungry. So again, just really paying attention to your hunger and fullness cues.
That's such good advice. And I think even if you are trying your very best and practicing these things, those well-meaning family members can really be a thorn in your side when you're trying so hard. What about those family members that will pressure you to keep eating, even though you're full? They're always encouraging you to try this or have more of that. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, we've all been there, grandma, she's pushing you to eat that pie, even though, you can't fit any more in your tummy. Um, and it's true that sharing food with your community is a really special part of the holidays. However, in mindful eating, it's important that you know when to say no. So learn to say, no, thank you, I'm full when you're full, and respectfully maintain your boundaries. Another option is to just keep some food on your plate, so you can avoid the pressure altogether, or maybe just move on to something else like helping clean up, or maybe just talking with a different family member or friend.
Those are brilliant suggestions. Anything else? Are there other things that we could keep in mind when we're eating during the holidays?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely keep in mind that food is not the only part of the holidays. Really focus on the party and seeing your loved ones as well. In fact, why not incorporate some fun holiday activities like sledding, snowman building, snowboarding, skating, all that jazz, just so you can keep up with your physical activity while still enjoying your break. And probably my final message that I want to let you guys know about is that maintaining an overall balanced diet and lifestyle is key. So if you do happen to overindulge in foods during the event, know that your body will naturally regulate. So if you pay attention to those hunger and fullness cues, you might notice that you'll eat lighter the next day. So don't stress too much.
Thank you, Janelle. So many great strategies there. I'm wondering if you have any resources you could share with us for nutritious holiday recipes.
Yeah, for sure. You can refer to cookspiration.ca, unlockfood.ca, and of course, ahs.ca/recipes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks again.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. I am pleased to introduce Petra DeBow. Petra is Manager of Family and Community Support Services, most commonly referred to as FCSS. and you may have heard of FCSS and you may not have, but Petra has agreed to come and talk with us to explain exactly what it's all about. Welcome, Petra.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. Can you just sort of jump right in and tell our viewers about FCSS?
Absolutely. So you already said FCSS stands for Family and Community Support Services, and it is a 80-20 funding between the province and municipalities or Métis settlements. And it is provided through the FCSS Act and regulation. 97% of municipalities and Métis settlements across the province have FCSS offices. And in a nutshell, some of the FCSS mandates or key responsibilities are being prevention focused, offering preventative social projects and services. It's community driven, so every community have unique to them needs and priorities, and services usually reflect that community need. It is all about community development. So a term that's usually used is people helping people. This principle contributes to a sense of integrity, self-worth, and independence. It is also has a collaborative focus with other community organizations to ensure that the resources are effectively and efficiently used. And of course, the service, or not of course, but the services are for everyone. So we usually joke and say it's from diapers to diapers or diapers to dentures. And yeah, so that's everyone can receive services at FCSS. And these, what the FCSS is trying to achieve, and our motto is strengthening families in rural Alberta. But there are, of course, FCSSs in cities and urban settings as well. So the FCSS outcomes, or what we're trying to achieve, are that residents are resilient, they have positive relationships, they are socially engaged and contribute to their own community, and that residents are able to ask for help and know where to ask for help. And so we, Barons Eureka Warner, is one FCSS agency amongst many in the province. And we are unique as we cover multiple municipalities.
Okay. You've explained a lot about what sorts of things you're there to support, but why would someone in a typical scenario visit an FCSS office or reach out?
Great questions. So every FCSS looks a little bit different depending on the needs of that community. But what I think one thing that we all have in common are that we are act as a one-stop shop for information, support, and services. So individuals come to us needing help with various forms or applications. They may need help with system navigation, weeding through the jungle of red tape and services available, or they may need help with a basic needs referrals, such as food security or housing, or any other community referral. And then, of course, if they're just looking for information or registering for an FCSS program or service. Okay. And demographics I kind of already talked about, that it's for anyone.
Okay, you mentioned, how many communities did you say within Barons Eureka Warner?
So we cover 16 municipalities. And,
okay. What are the specific services then that are under that umbrella?
So yeah, so as I said, 60 municipalities that are within 3 counties, so Lethbridge County, County of Warner, and MD of Taber. And some of the main services that we provide, so as I said earlier, every FCSS looks a bit different, but these are our specific services. And we have 3 main service areas, or department, if you may say. So the first is counseling services. So we have counseling services for youth, families, couples, individuals, group counseling, and that includes seniors as well. And then we have what we call family services, and that is more parent education and supports, and those could be one-on-one or group. So an example would be Triple P is a program we offer, or infant massage. And then we also have early childhood education programs. A typical program is Stay and Play, where parents and children come together and play. And we have some youth programs, and then also cultural specific services in that area. And then another service area is outreach services. Again, there are some youth services there as well, but they're for more older children and they're very leadership focused. And then we have senior services, volunteer services, and also we have a tax program in our outreach services. And all of our services are free.
Okay, wonderful. So, I mean, that is a huge array. What is it? Why is FCSS unique?
I think FCSS is unique because there is an FCSS office in almost every small community. So the uniqueness is that, for example, a resident in Foremost or Vauxhall, McGrath, who are all very remote communities away from urban cities. So a resident from these small communities have somewhere to go for support. So it's very approachable, or it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Accessible. So the South region covers as far north as Brooks, and then as south down to Cardston, Coots, and east to Cypress County, and to the west, Crowsnest Pass. So our south region is very collaborative, and so there is an FCSS office in almost every little community in that south region. So FCSS services are available, pandemic or snowstorm. There's always a director or staff in an FCSS office. I think that's one of the unique things about us.
That's really encouraging. That really speaks to, serving hard to serve and underserved populations. Is there anything that you can think of that you might want to add?
If anyone is looking for more information about FCSS services or want to know more, they can contact their local municipality. And if you are looking for services with us or information, you can go to www.fcss.ca.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. I think this is really going to maybe give some people some things to look for maybe help that they've been looking for. This will give them some answers. Thank you so much, Petra. It's nice to talk with you.
Thank you for having me.